Hello, we are in London today and for an interview with Eddy Travia, CEO of Coinsilium. Welcome, Eddy.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a bit more about you?
Yeah, sure. I'm originally from France, but I moved to China in 2004, and from 2004 to until 2013, I was working in private equity and VC investments, um, mostly in the Greater China area. And in 2013, I created a Bitcoin startup incubator. So the idea was to help at the time a few startups in this space, in the cryptocurrency space, to grow and to develop. And the main concerns for these companies, apart from the usual concerns about access to cash and finding the right people, the main concern was regulations and the fact that many banks were not really keen on helping startups in that space or just providing services, and there was a very big regulatory uncertainty. So we were helping them in that regard. And then in 2014, we moved our offices to London. And in 2015, we were the first company to do an IPO and go on a recognized stock exchange in this sector. And that happened in December 2015 under the name of Coinsilium.
I see. What brought your interest to the blockchain technology? Why did you become why did you bring your investment mindset to the blockchain industry?
Well, like most people, I think the first encounter was Bitcoin. In 2012, 2013, Bitcoin was just starting to be a bit more known. There were two elements that really triggered my interest. First element was what we call today the Cyprus bail-in, which is a time when the government of Cyprus decided to take money from all bank accounts or most of the bank accounts on the island, because they had treasury problems. And at that time, the mainstream media started talking about Bitcoin, saying that if the people in Cyprus had access to Bitcoin, that's not something you can confiscate.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can take. And the other point was an investment in Coinbase, which was made by a company called IDG. I think Coinbase raised maybe $6 million at the time. That was in May 2013. And because I was in this space of investments, instead of focusing only on the crypto part, my interest was to help startups and to start investing in startups, which at the time there were not many investors. So it was quite easy to contact entrepreneurs, and we had 6 calls a day with all over the world, and it was great, very exciting.
What do you think? Do you think their opinion change, or what are VCs, investors, and just what's their opinion on blockchain and crypto investments nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, since 2013, a lot of progress has been made. Many VCs and funds are looking at this space. Many have invested. Some of them may have a mandate that may prevent them to, for example, buy tokens. But I would say, in general, blockchain is much more the focus of attention in terms of one of the sectors where large companies, large corporates, corporate funds, and VC funds are investing. Of course, the first phase were more angel investors, especially investors from the internet era, because they've seen this before, they've seen this
They were
transformation.
more ready to take risks, maybe.
Also, yeah, sure. So angel investors have come in probably even as early as 2012. And really 2013, 2014, many more came in. And then in 2015 to now, it's more institutional interest.
I see. And Coinsilium must have a certain way to do things because you arrived early on. And how did you adapt this, the past framework, the past investment framework to this new technology and this new mean of investment?
Well, initially the main challenge would be that we have to work with in an environment which may not be well understood. I think that's the main problem. So there is an education part when we decided to do an IPO and we were talking to brokers and funds in London, I would say half an hour to an hour of the meeting was to talk about Bitcoin and blockchain.
Just introducing them.
Introducing them to the concept. So I think that's the main difference. Now, in terms of investments, it's a very standard approach. We rely on our network. We rely on the fact that we have been in this space for about 5 years now, and so we have a great network on which we can rely to find out about the new technologies. As you know, like any startup environment, people move on. They do a successful project, and then maybe they move on to a new one. So we come, for example, one of our investments is indoors. I met David in Singapore when we organized the first conference in Asia about Bitcoin in 2013, November, even earlier. And eventually we invested last year in one of his ventures. So that's how it evolves, So I think that's quite a common factor among small VC boutique firms.
I see. And what is the current trend in the market? What industry is actually the most disrupted right now nowadays? What's emerging?
Well, what is really emerging is the fact that a lot of these startups are issuing their own tokens, so they don't necessarily rely anymore on traditional investors. And in terms of industries, it's very, very wide. The scope is extremely broad. I mean, if you look at either new tokens or blockchain companies raising funds in a traditional way, you look at healthcare, or you look at P2P lending, or insurance, or gaming, video games, etc. I mean, you would have a plethora of startups in each sector, right? So I think that's quite exciting. It's part of the interest of being in this industry. But of course, what really happened in 2017 is the emergence of ICOs and token sales, and the fact that billions of dollars, maybe 4 or 5, depending on the way you assess it, has been raised already this way. So it's a different model. It's quite a challenge for investors, like all investors really, because we are used to assess equity value and in a certain way, and now we have to assess token value. And in many cases, you have both. So we usually invest in equity. We're not a token buyer, although now we are setting up a token fund. So there is a clear possibility that we start buying tokens. But up to now, we have mainly invested in equity, in shares, and we have been providing advisory services to 11 companies doing token sales. And we have helped them raise, they have collectively sold for about $500 million of tokens. So it's quite significant. Yeah.
How could we get involved with Coinsilium, or just in general?
So we're a company with shares traded on Next Exchange in London. So people can, actually. Yes, in that sense, traditional. So people can buy shares on this market. They have to go through a broker. Apart from that, we organize, meetups, some of them in conjunction with our friends from StartupToken, which is a company in which we invested. And there are events, meetups where I speak or my colleagues speak, the chairman, Malcolm Paley, and we do interviews and so forth. So there are ways to interact, in the real world. But of course, if you want to follow us, market price and last year was a great year for a lot of companies, and we have benefited from the increase in interest and visibility of the space, and we continue working hard, and I think there are many exciting things that are going to happen in 2018.
I see. Thank you very much for your time. So it was StartupToken with Coinsilium, Eddy Travia, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.